right, let's kick off. Before we begin, a few housekeeping items. If there are any audio issues, please try dialing in using the numbers provided in your invitation. Also, feel free to submit your questions live in the chat during our presentation. We'll answer them in the Q&A session at the end, or our team will address them as we go. This webinar is being recorded, and we'll be sending out the link over the next few days. My name is Henry Patishman, and I'm Executive VP of Identity Solutions here at Regula. And today I'm joined by my colleagues, Evgeny Kvilinkov, Compliance Product Manager at Regula. Evgeny brings a wealth of knowledge and experience from his extensive compliance background in banking and fintech.
Hi, Henry. Thank you for the introduction. Nice to be here.
And Alexandr Putyato, Head of Product at Regula. And Alexander brings 20 plus years of experience in building and deploying a variety of banking and fintech platforms.
Thank you, Henry, for introduction. Looking forward to our webinar.
Fantastic. Well, and together we'll all talk about how financial institutions can simplify identity lifecycle management with a unified platform-based approach to fraud prevention and compliance. Unifying compliance and fraud prevention sounds interesting, right? But why is this becoming such a priority now? Well, in the latest Regula survey, which highlights the biggest challenges organizations face when managing identity verification today, across both banking and fintech, the top issues are not verification accuracy. They're actually operational complexity. Banks struggle most with the lack of seamless integration between systems. That was noted by 47% of the respondents. Slow verification caused by incompatibilities between tools, and the difficulty of automating and orchestrating IDV processes. Also at 42%, so all very high numbers of respondents. For fintechs, the biggest challenge is a fragmented user experience, cited by half of the respondents. The common theme across all of them is fragmentation. Multiple vendors, disconnected workflows, and siloed data make onboarding slower, investigations harder, and compliance more expensive. When identity verification is built from fragmented tools, it creates security gaps that fraudsters can exploit. Legacy tools struggle with modern threats like AI-generated identities, deepfake biometrics, and automated bot attacks. We also see identity farming at scale, and abuse of weak account recovery flows can no longer be ignored. These evolving threats require multiple verification methods working together, not more isolated tools. The approach has been that each new threat creates a requirement to solve an immediate problem. And typically, this is done with another point solution. But together, each solution leads to greater complexity. More vendors, more integrations, more manual processes, more fragmented data. Just like technical debt accumulates when systems evolve without a clear architecture, identity debt builds up when organizations continuously add new verification tools, screening providers, compliance processes, and fraud controls over time. Identity debt is accumulated operational, compliance, and fraud risks caused by fragmented identity infrastructure. So a simple formula is legacy systems plus disconnected workflows and gaps, plus repeated verification, plus manual review creates this identity debt. The biggest vulnerabilities and challenges aren't fake IDs. They're the gaps between the tools. Logically, gaps between tools create real business problems, such as integration complexity, multiple vendors and APIs increase maintenance and slow down adaptability, and over time, this only increases operational overhead, as gaps become harder to manage and scale. Second, poor user experience. Customers are asked to repeat verification steps across different channels. Third, lack of identity visibility. Risk signals stay in separate systems. In some cases, they might not even be matched. so teams don't have a unified view. Fourth, operational inefficiency, more manual reviews, and an overload of work. And finally, compliance challenges, because auditing fragmented systems becomes much harder. Here, I will hand over to Evgeny to provide some more insights. Evgeny, take it away.
Sure, thank you, Henry. I totally agree with what you've just said. And looking at this slide, you can see many of the processes that are very critical to a bank's operations and compliance responsibilities. Unfortunately, these processes are often spread across multiple systems. For example, a compliance-related clarification might be buried in a Zendesk ticket or in an email thread or a chat with a relationship manager. Or similarly, documents may be stored in different repositories. And blacklists are often maintained separately, sometimes even in spreadsheets. Escalations and 4eyes reviews frequently happen in Slack or email rather than within the same system where the verification was passed. The result is a lack of a single source of truth because customer identity data is scattered across systems, making audits, investigations, and compliance reporting slower, more costly, and more prone to errors. Many financial institutions rely on 6 to 12 separate systems related to identity verification and fraud prevention. And this amount of separate systems creates operational inefficiencies, revenue loss, and compliance challenges. And the impact is visible across three main areas. The first one is operational inefficiency. Analysts spend time navigating multiple systems instead of making decisions. That jumping between different systems increases the risk of errors and manual workload. The second thing is revenue leakage. Every additional step or delay in onboarding reduces conversion. And successful compliance requires balancing regulatory requirements, fraud prevention, and customer experience. The third thing is higher compliance costs. Throughout 2025, regulators kept saying the same thing, that data is scattered across separate systems, so the bank never sees the full customer, and that's the problem. Fragmented data makes investigations, audits, and regulatory reporting more difficult and also prevents organizations from building a complete view of the customer. Regulators are no longer satisfied with a single point verification. They are demanding perpetual identity assurance across the entire customer lifecycle. It's not enough to only verify user during the onboarding. You also need to have controls in place to make sure that the most significant actions in the account are also performed by this user. For example, if a user takes a loan remotely, or if he makes a big transaction, without making sure that it's the account holder behind the screen, you might allow for the fraud to slip in. A great way to make sure that it's the account holder is to ask for biometric verification. That will be further cross-checked with his KYC profile and added as a part of it for audit purposes. This type of verification will also fit well when you spot anomalies in users' behavior, like changing the device, entering from suspicious IP address, or VPN, or using a Tor node, etc. Compliance and fraud prevention are two sides of the same coin. Can we trust this identity and this transaction? That's the main question. KYC establishes who the customer is, while fraud prevention determines whether the account is being used by the legitimate person and in a good way. A mule account is a good example. A real customer may pass KYC with genuine documents, but the account may ultimately be controlled by someone else. And that's a huge problem in the banking sector. That's why identity verification alone is not enough. Device intelligence, behavioral analytics, blacklists, and ongoing monitoring, they all help connect the dots and detect suspicious activity. Bringing these controls together creates a more complex, more complete risk picture and strengthens both compliance and fraud prevention. So how the proper identity lifecycle management flow looks like? When customer starts onboarding, the first step is to check if the client is not from a prohibited jurisdiction, and then collecting some supporting information from him in form of a questionnaire. After that, we already can move further to document collection and document authentication to make sure that this document is valid and that it's not forged. Then, if document is all right, we move to selfie capture together with liveness check, and we compare the selfie with the document that we received to make sure that it's the same person, and also to make sure that this is a live user, not some kind of synthetic identity or 3D mask. Then the next step usually is AML screening that consists from 3 main parts. To understand if the person is politically exposed person, because they by default are higher risk due to potential money laundering risks. Second thing is to check if this user is sanctioned individual. And the third thing is to check if there is any adverse media for this user. And then if AML screening is all right, we move further to risk scoring, which is also called risk-based approach. Very important part of onboarding in banking sector. Regulators expect us to define how we will treat this user. Is he low risk or medium risk or high risk? And in case if user is prohibited risk, then we will just not onboard him. High risk users usually require manual onboarding, and low and medium risk users are all right. And if, respectively, if the user is acceptable risk rating for us and fits within the company's risk appetite, he now can be onboarded and considered as verified. But this is not where the process ends, because identity lifecycle management flow consists not only from the onboarding, but also from ongoing monitoring. That's a very important part of it. And then periodic review and KYC refresh as well. So to summarize, modern identity platforms should deliver not only identity verification, but should also have fraud prevention capabilities, workflow orchestration, a unified identity view in form of a profile. Then we have case management, where we will handle alerts. Then continuous monitoring, ability to request additional documents and additional information, which is also very important. And finally, auditability. And on that note, I'll hand it back to you, Henry.
Thank you, Evgeny. Let's do a quick poll. So the poll today is, how does your organization handle identity verification? Take a second to choose the option that feels most relevant to you. So the options are, we use one IDV vendor across the organization. We use multiple IDV solutions for different regions and countries. We use a second vendor to continuously measure accuracy, fraud performance. We use a mix of vendors and in-house components. for example, OCR, risk scoring, liveness, etc. Our IDV is highly fragmented, so several tools across business units. Or we use a platform approach to manage multiple IDV tools. And finally, we don't have a formal IDV solution and primarily do manual checks. So let's see what answers we get. We'll give you another few seconds to put in your answer. I know that there's quite a few options. Hopefully you find one that's appropriate for your current business. All right, let's have a look. Have we got some answers in? Okay. Looks like fragmented identity stack is increasing blind spots for quite a few of our attendants today. Great. Let's continue on. So wouldn't it be great if there was a platform that combined all the necessary components for compliance and anti-fraud? That would be a real game changer for complete identity lifecycle management. And as you may have guessed, this is exactly the solution the Regula IDV platform provides. So now I will hand over to Alexander to do a deep dive into the platform and its capabilities. Over to you, Alexander.
Thank you, Henry. Thank you, Evgeny, for deep dive into processes in the industry. So I'm going to introduce Regula IDV platform that provides full identity lifecycle management. Our platform seamlessly integrates business opportunities, customer service, security, and compliance in one place. There is no more need to rely on multiple vendors. The result is less complexity and full control across the entire identity lifecycle. Instead of multiple disconnected tools, all verification capabilities are integrated into a single platform. Based on the most valuable Regular technologies of document recognition and biometrics, the platform is logically organized by layers and modules. It brings the value of straightforward business processes of data operating through modules and systems, like case management or risk management. As a result, it gives better control, visibility, and compliance out of the box. Another point is deployment. All our products are fully on premises and can be hosted on bare metal or in a cloud. There's no need to send sensitive data outside of your control. Let me highlight some more non-functional advantages of the platform. The first advantage is vendor-agnostic architecture. The platform integrates easily with your existing systems and third-party tools through flexible connectors. This means you're not locked into a single vendor. You can choose and combine the services that best fit your needs. It gives you the freedom to evolve your stack over time, while keeping everything orchestrated in the platform. Let's move to the workflow area. Now I'd like to show how Gartner, in its 2025 Planning Guide for Identity and Access Management, perfectly draws the complexity of the task. It is a lifelong user journey with a variety of interactions with the system that should be managed with specific protection tools. That's exactly where the platform approach fits in. It connects every single interaction, so the right controls and countermeasures are applied at the right moment, helping to detect risk signals in time. In addition, we have implemented all necessary background checks and tracking of expirations and validity. As an industry experts, we understand the uniqueness of each bank or financial institution and its processes. So, workflow orchestration model allows you to design and control your unique verification process, simply changing the order or adding steps. For example, document capture, biometric checks, database validation, or compliance screening. Before talking about this slide, I want to ask you to share your opinion in chat. What you consider more valuable, the user profile or the workflow? So please share with your ideas in the chat, and I will continue. So to make you more familiar with our platform and a bit prepared for a demo, I should introduce some concepts. The Regula IDV platform is built around three entities. The first one is workflow, the second one is user profile, and the third one is session. And next slides, I will show you how it opened in a demo. So now we are going to look through the demo. Regula platform operates with three main concepts, as I said: workflow, session, and profile. So workflow visually represent how a business process is orchestrated, what needs to be done, the order, and which conditions. Sessions is a sequence of business processes and data that gathered during one and another check, face matching, and others. Profile contains all the data about specific user, and it collected over the entire history. So we can see here a timeline, we can see here biometric data, and so on. Now let's go to the workflows and see what need to create or modify. Every workflow consists of steps and logical actions. They automate process during the whole process of identifying the user. And steps are connected to each other through rules and transitions. Rules define the conditions under which a transition should occur, and transitions determine the destination where the process should go next. For example, if the document reading step, there might be a rule that says if document has an RFID chip, the workflow should move to the next step, chip reading, and so on. Sometimes data come in a raw form, and there is a large block of unstructured results from a document reader. Transforms, clean, and convert this data to usable fields. Another part is using third parties. For example, sending a verification code via SMS or email. All these elements, fields, steps, rules, transforms, and actions come together inside a workflow, allowing it to be fully tailored to each other customers in a business scenario. Okay, and now I'm going to give the word to Henry. Thank you.
Thanks, Alexander. That was a really valuable deep dive. So, to summarize, here are a few of the key takeaways from today. Fragmentation is increasing fraud exposure. Regulators expect unified identity governance. AI-driven attacks require integrated defenses. Identity lifecycle management is replacing point solutions. And unified compliance and fraud prevention strengthen security and meet evolving regulatory expectations much more effectively. On that note, we can get across and see some questions. So we hope that you found this webinar useful and interesting, and now ready to answer some of your questions. Let's see what we've got in the chat. Okay, what questions have we got? All right. Here's one. Can Regula platform integrate with our existing tools and banking systems? Well, the answer, of course, is yes. The platform is vendor agnostic and designed to integrate with systems via APIs and connectors. So it really depends on your requirements. Some organizations adopt the platform gradually, starting with some specific workflows or use cases, and others implement it to cover the whole process. Whichever way you choose, the platform is highly scalable and highly flexible, allowing you to choose which approach you want to choose. So hopefully that answers that question. Next one. What kind of customization is possible in workflows without heavy development effort? Alexander, I might hand that one to you. You're on mute. Maybe we'll pause with Alexander and we might go to the next question. We'll come back to this one. So the next question we've got is, can AI completely replace compliance and anti-fraud? Evgeny, this sounds like a question directed at you.
Yeah, that's a very interesting question because a lot of people are currently very afraid that AI might take the job from them, and they're considering what are the options where they can work in the future that will still be relevant in the age of AI. So I think that compliance analyst position and different kind of investigators and so on, they will still be relevant and in the future as well, because AI cannot fully replace human at this stage, not in the near future, because humans still should be in the loop. Regulators require that the human stay in control of the decisions, because someone should take the responsibility for them. But AI can significantly help us in our day-to-day work. It can analyze the alert. It can assist you to draft a comment that you need to put in the account or in a case. And it can even suggest you what kind of decision you need to take to suspend account, to unblock it, and so on, to add it to blacklist. So it will significantly improve your efficiency as a compliance specialist, which is very nice. But to answer the question, I think no, that in the near future, compliance specialists still need to be in control because someone should be responsible of the final decision.
Fantastic. There's some more questions. Is it your platform able to detect Gen AI fraud? That's an interesting question. Evgeny, do you want to tackle that one, or do you want me to do it?
Question indeed. Yes, we definitely can catch AI-generated fraud. For example, synthetic identities. When you create some sort of mask, face mask, and you apply it on your face during the verification. So our system can spot this type of synthetic identities, or it can spot injection attacks. For example, when you send not your live verification that you're currently undergoing, but you inject a video inside the verification flow. So it is a more sophisticated technical fraud. And we can catch it very efficiently. I would say that Regula's biometric verification and document verification, of course, is currently on a very, very high level of efficiency. And I would definitely rely on our solution to catch this type of fraud.
And I would definitely say that document liveness is a key component of that. So making sure that the document being presented for verification is actually present rather than a photocopy or a printout of that document, because our capabilities do allow to check for liveness and for some of the special features of documents that can prove whether it's a real document or a printout or a photocopy or an artificially generated document. And similarly with the facial biometrics, liveness detection is also a key component. Another interesting question, apart from identity documents, do you analyze also other type of documents that are generally required during some onboarding processes? like pay slips, bank statements, etc. Another fantastic question.
I can take it over, Henry.
You want to take that
That's
one
my
too?
domain.
All right.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right, making my job easy.
Yeah, that's definitely an interesting question and important for banks, for bank industry, because as we know, KYC process quite often requires also proof of address check. So our system was trained with machine learning to be able to extract all the necessary fields from different types of documents, proof of address documents, so that you could, for example, collect from the user his self-declared address. Then the user will send, for example, bank statement or utility bill. We'll check if this is within 3 months of issue or 6 months of issue, as you wish. It's configurable. Then we will check if it's a valid document, for example, indeed utility bill. And then we will extract this address from the document, and we'll cross-check it with what user self-declared to see if it matches. And then we can give respectively alerts and take some actions, decisions, suspend profile sessions in case if there is any mismatch. So I would say that yes, our system is also very useful for other types of documents.
And of course, if there are specific tools that you are already using and have available within your approach, all of those tools can be implemented as part of the platform as well. That will give you that additional flexibility that we discussed. So that's. Have we got any more questions, or what have we got here? Yeah, this is a good one. How do you balance stronger fraud prevention, like liveness and deep fake detection, whilst maintaining a smooth user experience? Evgeny, do you want that one, or am I taking this one? I'll take it.
Yeah, you can take it.
All right. So the key is a risk-based approach. So instead of applying all checks to every user, the platform actually evaluates the risk signals in real time and triggers the right verification flow only when it's needed. So low-risk users go through a fast, minimalist workflow, whilst higher risk cases can get additional checks like liveness or deeper manual checks. And this actually keeps the experience smooth for most users, whilst maintaining strong fraud protection where it actually matters for the users that you actually do need to do that deeper dive. Looks like Alexander's dropped off and not having much luck with technology. So we'll still come back to that question. And that question is, what kind of customization is possible in workflows without heavy development effort? Evgeny, do you want that one?
Oh, I think this question might be more related to Alexander, quite technical one related to customization. I just know that our system supports different types of customizations and workflow builders, etc.
Okay. Well, I'll give a little bit more info on that. So, as we discussed, the workflows are highly configurable. You can define steps, logic, verification sequences. You can combine document checks, biometrics, database searches, or include additional questions or fields without actually any deep development work. So the platform actually allows for really quick adaptable flows to cater for new regulations, for particular fraud patterns or business needs. So a lot of the things can be done without much sort of development effort. And there is quite a bit of customization that can be done by, I wouldn't say users, but experienced admins can actually do quite a lot without any dev work whatsoever. On that note, I think that's all the questions that we've got. So we hope that you enjoyed the webinar, and we'd like to thank you for attending. And we will be sending out the video recording of this webinar shortly. So hopefully we've shared some valuable information, and look forward to seeing you at the next regular webinar. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Henry. Thanks, everyone.